Namaskar, and welcome back. Today we have a really interesting discourse, which is called Part Life and Full Life. And it's one of Sri Anandamurti's very much less well-known discourses, but I found it very interesting and also very useful. And it's the idea of it and the spirit of it helped me a lot in my meditation, so I really looking forward to sharing it with you. So let's get into it. This is actually a series of discourses, or I'm taking not all of it, but over a few evenings in 1980, I think. Now, what is a human life? Where does it start? And where does it end? Everyone knows that for everything in the material and mental world, there is a starting point as well as a culminating point. Culminating means the point where it reaches its peak. So, for instance, where does a person's physical life in the physical world begin or start? The answer is in the labor room, in the delivery room, where the babies are born. That precisely is the starting point of a human life. And finally, a human life ends in the flames of the funeral pyre. This is what human life is. We may say that this is the earthly life of a human being. But in the mental or spiritual world, in a psycho-spiritual sense, we cannot call it a full life. In the mundane world, it may be considered as one life, but in the psycho-spiritual world, it is definitely only a part life. Human beings will have to move forward through a series of lives of this sort. They will have to move through such a series now and in the future as well. And where is the starting point of life in the psycho-spiritual world? Certainly not in the labor room. Rather, it starts where metazoa, that is multicelled organisms, it starts when the metazoa attain a human body. And where does it end? When the human life, full life, becomes one with Paramapurusha, the Supreme Consciousness, through the numerous ups and downs of many lives, many part lives together. A psycho-spiritual life does not culminate, means reach its end, on a funeral pyre, because it has to take birth again into another earthly life. What is a life in the mundane world is a part life in the psycho-spiritual sphere. Thus, human beings in the mundane world have to progress through a series of part lives, and this is how they keep moving on. As the metazoa, the multicellular organisms, attain a human body and continue to move forward towards Paramapurusha, this onward movement takes place through various part lives. This movement must be through certain distinct stages. It must have a fixed goal. It must have a distinct rhythm. Because movement alone is not enough. If it is not rhythmic, it will not bring joy to it, joy with it. Human life will become dull and monotonous. So that was the first section, which was given on the 30th of December in 1981. And the second section followed on the next night. A series of part lives is what constitutes a full life. And where is the starting point of the full life? Where the complex multicellular structure of a living being, but not a human, first attains a human framework. And thereafter, the human being attains complete oneness with Paramapurusha. So it starts when we get a human body, we're no longer an animal or a plant, and it ends when we become one with Paramapurusha. We notice that some persons in the world are exceedingly intelligent by birth. Some possess certain special qualities that are not to be found in dozens of other people. Someone is a genius in music. Someone is a genius in speech. Someone is endowed with a very sharp memory. Why does it happen? The answer is that a person acquires a certain qualitative potentiality due to his or her actional awareness or actional desideratum. So they acquire certain potentialities due to the awareness that they have in their actions and what is the goal of their actions, their desideratum, which in turn depends on how they utilize their part lives, how they get themselves deeply involved in certain types of action in their part lives. Later on, when they are reborn into another part life, their potentialities, which they acquired from their previous part lives, assert themselves or make themselves obvious in actions. So the momentum, the things that they were interested in, the things that they learned and studied in a previous part life, that is what gives their direction in the next part life. That is why one gives expression to one's potentiality right from childhood. And what a human being does in a particular life through personal effort becomes that person's wealth achieved in that life. And what a human being accumulates in this way and expresses in a particular life is called technique. And the person acquiring the technique is called a technician. The techniques acquired in one lifetime and which remain in potential form then are expressed in a later part life. This is what is called genius. So if you develop a technique in a particular life, then you are a technician, right? You didn't have that technique and you develop it and you become a technician. So you're pretty skilled in that. But you take what you learned in that life will come with you when you are born in the next life. You don't have to learn it. And people will say, wow, he's a genius, right? Because you learned it as a technician. So in your past life you were a technician. In this life you are a genius because you didn't learn it in this life. Thus, genius is an inborn faculty. And technician refers to a person who has developed his ordinary talents to an extraordinary degree of efficiency. What we gain by our efforts in one life is what is called technique. And that very technique in the next and in subsequent part lives is turned into genius. An intelligent person should utilize every part life to the fullest extent. And then, if he or she happens to be reborn in a subsequent part life, he or she can utilize this acquired technique, which he or she originally achieved by proper utilization and proper effort in their previous part life. Such a person will be able to perform extraordinary work, will be able to think of nobler things right from early childhood. If a person utilizes one's existing part life to an enormous extent, in that case, the pointedness of his or her maximum utilization will land him or her ultimately in the supreme stance of Paramapurusha. Such a person will not be required to come again in another part life. So, that is, if you utilize your full potentiality, which is the potentiality to become self-realized, to become one with Paramapurusha, then to achieve liberation. If you utilize all that potentiality, then you will not have to come back for any further part lives. Right? So this discourse had a very interesting impact on me. And I think if we all think about it, it will have a strong impact on anybody. So what it's saying is that don't think of your life just in terms of this life. Think of your life as your full life. This is a life of your body, but it's only a part life of your mind and spirit. Your mind and spirit did not begin with this body. It began with all your human life, on the mental and spiritual sphere, began when you first became a human being and you were no longer an animal. So that's the beginning of your human life. And it doesn't end after that, end of your first physical body. The mind and the spirit go on to the next body and the next life and the next part life and the next part life, until you reach oneness with the Supreme Consciousness. So the discourse is encouraging you to think of yourself, of your life as a full life, means your whole journey, and to plan and organize your life with the goals that are relevant to the whole journey, not just to a small part of the journey, which is this physical life. Make your plans, choose your activities, choose what you go deeply into, choose the skills that you acquire in the knowledge that you're thinking of yourself as your full life. So it's not just this life. And so maybe you want to, maybe your goal, if you're thinking only in terms of the goals of this part life, well, I have to make some money, I want to have a family, and this and that, and whatever your goals may be. But see how you feel about your goals if you start thinking that I will live life after life after life after life until I become one with Paramapurusha. If I think like that, what sort of goals should I have, right? What's important to me if I think of my life as that kind of journey, right? So for me, what becomes important to me then is not how much money I have or I don't have. Of course, I need money in order to survive. But what's important to me is what kind of mission can motivate me, can be something that I can live for life after life after life. You know, what's my real purpose? What do I really want to accomplish, not just in this life, but in all my lives together? Now, I can acquire those skills. Maybe I can't acquire all the skills that I need in this life, but I can get started. You know, frequently you hear people say, oh, I'm too old to learn that. Well, maybe you're too old to become an expert in it, but get started. If it's something important, you can get started now and continue in your next life. And what you learn, as what it said here, that everything that you learn in this life, you will take with you, right? So if you become, if you get started on meditation and you become reasonably good at it, then you will be born already reasonably good at meditation. If you start to learn about something important like, how can we make a better world? How can I be a better leader? All those kinds of things. Whatever you learn in this life, you will take with you, and you will be born with more of an understanding of the world. You will be born a better leader, a better organizer, and you will go on increasing those qualities. So for me, it encouraged me to put importance on the things which really matter in eternity, right? So the spiritual journey and helping others in the spiritual journey, that is something that for me could be a mission that I could do life after life, right? I remember someone asked Baba what his mission was, and he said, to spread devotion, the love of the divine throughout the universe. Well, that's obviously a mission that you could, continue finding meaningful forever, right? So, that's what I wanted to share today. Think about your life in terms of not just this small part life. Think about it in terms of the life of your mind and the life of your spirit, which incarnates again and again. What kind of mission do you want to have for your full life, right? What may seem difficult to attain in this life, but if you think in terms of such a long term, get started, get moving. You may not reach that goal in this life, but you can definitely reach it if you think in that kind of perspective. So I hope you found that useful and inspiring, and I wish you, all the best. Take care. Namaskar.